Hello everyone, this is Akash. The year's about to end, and I just wanted to have a quick chat about the state of Java development. Um, the year was big for Java because the new LTS version was released. If someone wants a quick revision, this is what the roadmap looks like. So LTS versions are generally now released every 2 years. So if you see 21 is the latest LTS, which was released this year. The previous one was 17, which was released in September 2021. 11 was released in September 2018. And everyone's favorite, 8 was released March 2014. So previously, the Java releases used to be far apart, and they used to pack a lot of changes, a lot of new features, and things like that. Like when I started working, we we were doing 7 to 8 migration, and that took all of us a huge chunk of time to get done. But now with frequent releases, with a lot of non-LTS releases in between, so there's a new version coming out every 6 months now, and a lot of preview features are enabled way before they are generally made available. So there's if someone's following the um, the up and coming features and what's exciting, in a way you already know about it. People talk about it a lot, and with frequent releases, it becomes easier to use. With that, I today in this video, I just wanted to pick up 4 5 good ones which I have kept tabs on from the last few releases. So probably in this window. Um, so let's before going into that, let's just look at what some major surveys show about the state of Java development. So this is a survey by JetBrains. I think they released it somewhere in August, I think. I'm not wrong. But if we come and look at languages section, um, Java is maintaining a steady ground over the last few years. It has not fallen like probably JS here. And if we look at the numbers, this is it's kind of been constant for the last 3 years. If we specifically dive into Java itself, um, like I said, everyone's favorite Java 8 is on top. Um, Still used, at least according to the survey, 50% of um, people who took the survey still use Java 8. And then the next one is 45. Um, there's another survey by New Relic. New Relic is a application monitoring tool with a heavy focus on Java monitoring. If we look at their survey, um, they kind of show that the use of Java 8 in production is kind of on the decline over the last few years. 11 is picking up well, and 17 is pretty new in terms of looking at it relatively, but it is still picking up at a decent pace. So there's just kind of a high level industry view on what's going on. Right, so next we'll look at some interesting JEPs. So JEPs are nothing but JDK enhancement proposals. Basically, the OpenJDK community brings up these, and then they target a release. Sometimes they will have multiple preview versions, and then they'll finally GA it. So what we'll do is we'll look at some of these. Um, uh, some of these JEPs, what do they talk about? What's like the motivation behind it and stuff like that, and then quickly look at a code snippet which would uh, explain like how would you use it. And All right, so the first one I want to talk about is something called switch expressions. So it's already been delivered and it's relatively old now because it was released as part of 14. Um, this basically simplifies how you traditionally write switch statements. And yeah, basically, rather than following this standard structure that we're used to, you can now uh, use the switch label by comma separated values and have a arrow operator to signify what is the code that should match and run. All right, so I've switched to my ID. As you can see, I already have a very simple switch block written here. Um, it basically has two cases here, which sets the type to grass. Two types here, two cases here, which sets it to fire, and then a default. And then these are the inputs which I'm using as part of the parameterized test. Throughout this video, you'll see a lot of Pokemon, just to explain, I guess. But anyway, so let's first run this. Fairly simple. There's no um, there's no surprises for anyone here. But now let's try to basically convert it to the expression form which we saw in the JEP. So now IDs are already aware of this, and if you ask your ID to suggest you changes, it will on the switch it will try to see if the expression can be formed. And as you can see in this preview, it's already forming that comma separated case label situation with the arrow operator. So if I replace that, you can see that now the switch is much much smaller, I would say, and obviously it gives the same output, no surprises there. But basically, it's much less lines of code, making it less verbose. Everyone always complains that Java is very verbose, so probably this adds to the readability and usability. All right, so the next one I want to talk about is something called sequenced collections. So this is pretty new. Um, it got released as part of the 21 release, which was, as you saw, very recent. If you look at the if you look at the summary, it says that introduce new interfaces to represent collections with a defined encounter order. Basically, well-defined first element, second element, and so on up to the last. And there are new APIs which have been added to access the first and the last elements, and um, if you want to like um, use the collection in a reverse way and so on. Some of the motivation is, I think everyone's used to it, that when you either you use a iterator or you use .get and then you have to write such code. It's basically it does the work, but each collection, as you can see, has different ways of getting the first or the last element. Some, like it says here, some are not very obvious and some are like completely missing, like in the case of linked hashet where you need to use the iterator. So they explain it well. I'll link it in the description, but let's quickly look at this before we look at the code. Basically, now they have added new blocks um, here in the map tree hierarchy as well, and here. So basically, now these are new first class elements which you can directly use, and it basically gives you a consistent um, usability across all collections. All right, so we'll have a small um, small snippet using something called sequenced map, basically a map but now sequenced, and following the um, Pokemon theme. Let's just do a map of integer and string, and then let's just create a linked hash map. So now I'll just show you some new methods which are there. So starting with something called put first. This is brand new. If I quickly hop into the method level Java doc, um, see that inserts the given mapping into the map if not already present, or replaces the value of a mapping if already present. That means whenever you push this, all the other elements will be pushed down, and this will always be the first element in this map. And if we look at the sequence map interface itself, obviously it's been added in 21, but they do a good job in explaining what are the different ways you can do it and so on. But anyway, let's add it. So let's do this, and then similarly we will do a put last with, let's do new. Okay, so now we have two elements. Now quickly what we can do is something called sequenced entry set. Okay, and then we will do another one which is Pokemon dot reversed. Okay, let's run this first. What we expect. I mean, the methods are quite readable, so you will understand what you're getting. So this is what we get, and then if we look at the other variations, there is also a sequence values and a sequence key set, which will give you the key and the values separately as a sequence set and as a sequence collection. So these are basically brand new collection methods which you are getting. Now there is another interesting method in the map called newly added, called poll first entry and poll last entry. So what does this do? Removes and returns the first key value mapping in this map, or null if the map is empty. So what this means is that when I poll the first entry, it will give me this and it will remove it from the map. So now if I do, yeah, let's just, as you can see, it returned this here, which was me polling the first entry, and then it just has that left now. Now let's quickly look at if someone wants to do multiple entries, how will they do it? So now if with order in mind, what you will do is something like this. So I'm putting this in first and then I'm replacing it. I mean, I'm putting another first one, which is the right value in terms of Pokemon sequencing. And now if I run this, finally, I will be able to see 1, 2, and 1. So yeah, similarly, if you use put last, you can push from the other side as well. But basically, I think this is a very, very new change in the collections ecosystem, and everyone who's fond of collections will probably start using it when they start migrating to 21 and above. So the next one I want to talk about is records. Records were released in 16, and basically they act as this JEP says, transparent carriers for immutable data. So think of it as your age-old POJOs, but redefined using records. So let's quickly look at how easy this makes writing code in Java. Reduces a lot of lines of code, basically similar to what some third-party libraries such as Lombok do, but now added as a first-class citizen of the JDK itself. And then there are some other fun ones which are not directly related to records, but have been enhanced to make your job. So first, what I'll do is, first let's just enter a old style of Pojo. So I have a class Pokemon here. It has ID and name, a constructor, two getters, and then all the usual suspects, equals, hash code, and string. All right, so obviously I used a live template here, but writing this is how you would write it. It'll probably take you a few minutes to do it at best. So now let's do the same thing using records now. So there's a new keyword called record. Let's call our record Pokemon R. We can't keep it same as the class, obviously. It'll clash. Let's just keep the same members, and that's it. I'm done. This will expand whenever you run your code internally, just like Lombok does, and give you everything else which is part of this class here. Now, using this is as simple as using any other Pojo class which you're used to. So let's do this, and then I pass. All right. Now this gives me, that's it. I'm now ready to use it. I can do things like Pokemon dot name, or if I want to do um, Pokemon dot toString or whatever. It gives me everything uh, from basically everything for free. Now, it's pretty neat. I don't need to worry about writing how many, roughly 40, 30, 40 lines of code. I don't need all of that. It can be done in one line itself. That's pretty cool. Now, what we'll do is we will look at some the other two JEPs which I was talking about. So one of them is called pattern matching for instance of. So this was released in 16, same as records, but at this point it was unrelated to records. Basically, the summary says that enhance the Java programming language with pattern matching for the instance of operator. It allows common logic in a program, basically helps in extraction of components from objects. Um, I'm sure everyone is used to this casting inside a instance of situation. The comment here says and expresses the frustration of a code object, basically a code template like that. Now, what you can do is let's first look at how you used to do it earlier. So now, what I have is I've just these generic print methods, which I will expand using templates. This is what everyone is used to. This is like way back. Um, you would check if an object is an instance of something, and then you would cast that object into the same thing and then use it. All right. So now with the JP that I was just talking about, what you could do is something like this. Um, yeah. So you can do something like basically get rid of the casting. You do instance of, and then you directly use that object here. Um, Obviously, this is here. Um, so now let's look at something called record patterns. This was released just now in 21, and it basically combines the usability of records with this pattern matching, which was introduced in 16. What you can do now is something like this. You do object instance of the definition of the record itself, as I've declared it here, and it basically lets you use first class variables inside this block immediately. So that's, I mean, if you have a small record, it probably makes sense to directly use it like this um, rather than needing another call inside that object. So if we run this code, it will all give the same output, but basically in different forms. So first one is what everyone is used to casting, then uh, pattern matching, and then record pattern matching. So basically, this why I chose this is basically they're connecting these features well. Like they introduce something in 16, and then they match it with something else, which was also released in 16, which is records, and now you get usability like this. So just showing that the ecosystem is pretty good, thriving and doing exciting things, I guess. All right, so I have two more to talk about. Uh, One is just for API documentation, which got released in 18. It introduces a snippet tag for the Javadoc standard, and it basically aim is to simplify the inclusion of source code in the documentation. If you want to specifically highlight or point out specific APIs or part of the APIs, you can do that in a much better way. Uh, People were using things like these HTML tags, but now they're trying to make it more first class by introducing this. So this one I've already I've already written out, and like I said, it's basically just for documentation, but we look at it. So basically, this snippet tag, and then there's a tag called highlight, and highlight has multiple things you can use, like such as type, what type of a highlighting do you need, what part do you want to highlight, like you can specify substring in whatever is preceding it, and you can even use regex. I just have some simple examples. What I'll do is now is I'll let the ID um, show us the rendered Java doc. As you can see, this whole line is highlighted. This one is bold. Uh, Here the P1 is in italics. In this one, the P1 is highlighted, and this one, the method dot name is highlighted. So just like uh, if someone's really fond of documentation, you just have more power now. All right. So now the last one, the big one, which is called virtual threads. So virtual threads were they've been they've been talked about for a very long time. As you can see, um, let me just show you all the history. So it was basically part of Project Loom, where they started talking about trying to use something called virtual threads, which is built on top of the OS architecture and doesn't use OS resources, but basically um, virtualizes everything on top of your OS. So the one of the goals are enable existing code that uses java.lang.thread API to adopt virtual threads with minimal changes, and enable server applications written in simple thread per request style to scale with near optimal hardware utilization. So the first preview was released in 19, then the second preview was released in 20, and then finally we got the GA in 21. Um, Here it talks about all the history and the same goals exist. But basically now you can do much more virtualization smartly without starving your hardware resources. We'll look at a simple enough um, code snippet to see um, how how you can basically see this in action. All right, so what I'll do is first let me I have a runnable here. What does it do? It first increments this atomic counter, and then it just sleeps for 1 second. That's it. It doesn't do anything fancy. What I want to do with this code is I want to show you how much time does it take to do the same thing using uh, what Java now calls platform threads, and what the new addition is, which is called virtual threads. So let me quickly run this code. First complete this code, obviously, then run it. All right, so what I want to do is I have this parameterized test where I'm passing 0 and 1. If this flag is true, I want to use virtual threads. If it's not true, I want to use normal threads. And there are new APIs on how to use these things as well. So let me first show you how you can create a normal thread. So now thread has something called off platform, and you can do this and then pass your runnable. Quite simple. Now, if we look at the API, it says returns a builder for creating a platform thread or thread factory that creates platform threads since 21, and then it talks about what are some ways to use it. Now, if I want to do the same thing with virtual threads, all I want to do is off virtual. So now if this flag is true, I will use virtual threads, pass the same runnable. If it's false, I will use platform threads, which are the traditional threads, and start the runnable as well. Well, I am already measuring the runtime here. What I'll also do is, just to show that the counter got executed the same number of time, is let's just quickly add a small 1 second timer here, sorry, sleep here, so that all the threads are finished. And what we will do is we will pass the counter, we will print the counter value. Okay, so let's run this now. It'll take a bit to run. I may forward this part. So um, as you can see, the code has already finished, and let's look at the numbers. So when I was using platform threads, it took about 31,000 milliseconds, um, and it ran the same number of time which I wanted to run. And when I use virtual threads, it just took 206 milliseconds, and the counter was far less. Just to demonstrate that the situation will be same if we flip the order of run, let's just quickly run this again. As you can see, I've already ran my virtual threads uh, uh, in 194 milliseconds, and obviously it'll take a lot of time to finish the second part, which is about 30,000 milliseconds like we saw. So like I said, this just been G8, but it had been creating a lot of noise for a very long time. Just like look up Project Loom. That's all I had to talk about. Like, Java is staying alive. It's not going anywhere. It's adding a lot of new constructs and new features to make writing code in Java easier than ever, and lots of new exciting features as well, which can let you optimize your code in amazing ways. So yeah, don't forget to look at some of the new features. I know, like, if you're working, it's very hard to move to new features, but as a side hobby, at least you can keep a tabs on some of the exciting JEPs which I showed. There are much more. There are many minute class level API changes which are also very exciting. But yeah, these are the ones that I want to talk about. Hope you had fun, and yeah, let me know if there's something which I missed, which you've been using, or which you've been very excited to use, which just got released in the last few years. All right, bye.